morning, everyone, and welcome to my podcast, Fourboysandanlgirl. My name is Patty. I am taping this morning from, as usual, the extreme east coast of Canada and of North America, for that matter, in Newfoundland and Labrador. It is not a great morning this morning weather-wise. The rain is pouring, it's very gray, so I'm hoping that the lighting is going to be okay for this taping, because the last couple of times, the last podcasts that I've done, I've always had a beautiful sunny day with lots of natural sunlight, and I don't have that today. So hopefully the lighting from the lights in the room and from outside are going to be enough to make this podcast viewable. So thanks so much for watching. Welcome to anybody who is returning and watching this podcast for the third time. This is episode 3. And a very warm welcome to anybody who's new. Thank you so much for dropping by and checking out my podcast. This podcast is about knitting and crocheting and cross-stitching, rug hooking, general crafts, basically making all the things. So I am very creative. I'm involved in a bunch of different types of crafts, and I talk about them here on my podcast. And I also share a little bit about the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, where I'm from, because I think it's a beautiful place in the world to live, and I'd love for you to come and visit sometime. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about this morning are my works in progress. I was really hoping again this week that I would have a finished object, and that is of course in the form of my commitment sweater. My commitment sweater is the Ayrton sweater by Jane Ellis. You can find it under my Ravelry page in the project section of my Ravelry page. It's been taking me about a year to complete this sweater. It's not quite done, so it's been a little bit over a year because I think I started it last August. It's more of a sweater coat. There is a lot of yarn in this sweater, and it is very heavy. And the seams are huge. So I've managed to get, I'll show you. I've managed to get the right side. So hopefully you can see that there. So the sleeve is set in, the side seam is done. I need to sew the buttons on this side. I need to set in the seam on this side, set in the sleeve on this side. And I love mattress stitch. I love seaming up sweaters, but I don't like setting in sleeves. So I'm trying to get that done and out of the way so I can sew up the rest of the sweater. So anyway, by next week, this will definitely be a finished object, and hopefully I'll be wearing it. The next work in progress that I want to show you is one that I started a few weeks ago, but didn't show you because I was trying to pretend I was a monogamous knitter, which of course I explained last week I am absolutely not. This has been a really fun knit. I haven't got that far with it so far, but it is called it's by A Crafty House Knit and Crochet. It's called the Short Sleeve Quick Knitted Cardigan. And this one has been particularly fun because most of the projects that I've worked on recently have been on size, well, for socks, I think I use a 2.25 millimeter needle. And for the Ayrton sweater, that was a 4 millimeter needle. This one uses a 10 millimeter needle. And it takes some getting used to use these great big needles. I also had to go to, I think Michael's. I picked up the needles. I tried to get these big needles at my local yarn shop, but couldn't. They didn't have the large size that I needed. And the same with the stitch markers. I needed huge stitch markers as well, so I had to pick this up at Michael's. But that was okay. I had a 50% off coupon. So it's a top-down knit. I'll show you the back. So it's got a seed stitch collar around, and I'm just starting to form I don't know if you can see that. I'm just starting to form the cap of the sleeve. And as I mentioned, this is short sleeve. I am at the stage of life where there are times when I am simply too warm to live, and I'm hoping that I can wear this over a long sleeve t-shirt or even a short sleeve t-shirt in the winter, but that it won't be too warm. And let me tell you a bit about the yarn. I also picked up the yarn from Michael's. This is a Lion brand yarn. It's Lion brand Woolies Tonal, and I'm really happy with this. I probably have to say that I prefer my favorite yarns are indie dyed yarns or really specialty yarns, because I'm a bit of a yarn snob that way. But this is a mix of acrylic. Let me see, what's the mix? 80% acrylic, 20% wool. It's got gorgeous, hopefully you can see that in the light, the tones, the different blues. I love the tonal effect of this yarn, and I like the fact that there's a bit of acrylic in it. The wool with the acrylic makes the acrylic gives it a little bit more elasticity, which I like. But really, when I think about the majority of sweaters that I own, they are hand-bought, they're cotton or acrylic, and I love them, so why not knit with a acrylic wool blend for a sweater? It should be very durable, should be easy to wash, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it wears. I'm also looking forward to getting it finished, of course. And on these big needles, that shouldn't take me too long. Well, too long for me could mean it'll take me a couple months versus an entire year to get this particular project finished. My next work in progress is in my lovely Mrs. Brown Bags project bag. I love this bag. I've been using it all week. I've gotten several compliments on it. I'm using, for this project, I'm using Little Bean Crochets or Little Bean Loves gradient yarn in the colorway 11. So 011 or 11 spelled out. Named for the character 11 from the Netflix series Stranger Things. So this is what it looks like. I think I put a picture in last week about how the skein looked like once it was caked up. So that's what it looks like. It is beautiful and soft and lovely. So this project I'm working on for Sunshine and Bubblegum's Gradient Cal. And I hadn't told Lynn what project I was going to work on because I was going to leave it as a surprise. And then I thought, well, now that I've started a podcast, I'm not able to keep a surprise any longer. I just want to be able to show you what I'm working on so that you know that I'm working on something and not just twiddling my thumbs around here. Because I do a lot of that, twiddling my thumbs with the three boys. So this is what I have been working on. It is a shawl, and I know many people in Lynn's knit along are knitting shawls. I think Lynn is knitting socks that are gorgeous. They're also done in Little Bean Loves yarn. So this is the Hitchhiker shawl, beginning of the Hitchhiker shawl, and that is by Martina Behm, B-E-H-M, Behm, I think is how you pronounce that. I think she's from Germany, so I'm not quite sure I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's going, I think it has 42 or 41 points, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm almost on my 10th point. I'm just watching my cat over there who's up on the table where she shouldn't be. So I'm almost at point 10, which is really pleasing. I know I've got a long ways to go on this shawl. Lynn's cal runs until the 31st of October, so I'm fairly certain I can get this finished. I was also hoping to enter this shawl in the Knitting I Love cal on Knitting a Shawl. That one runs from September 18th to October 18th, and that might be a bit more pressure than I want to take on for finishing a shawl. But I'm going to look to that as a potential deadline, and maybe I will get this finished for that. We'll see. I'm not going to put too much pressure on myself. We all know how I do with finished objects, like my sweater. It takes me a long time. So we'll see how I go with this one. As I mentioned earlier, and in the past 2 episodes, one of the other crafts that I enjoy doing is rug hooking. And I haven't really spoken about rug hooking over the past couple of podcasts. I did show you a little bit of cross stitch, and there should be some more cross stitch delight coming up in the next podcast. But I wanted to show you some of my rug hooked pieces so that you can see what rug hooking I'm talking about. This is a more traditional rug hooking. It's not latch hook. It's a very traditional style of craft that was done in Newfoundland and Labrador years and years ago when houses weren't very well insulated, where rags, nylons, pantyhose were used as fabric to hook into burlap sacks, and they were put on the floor to keep the floors warm because the floors were so cold. I am lucky enough to have a couple of rugs that I own that are over 100 years old. One was hooked by, I believe, a great-great-grandmother of mine. At least that's what we think the history is behind it. So it's a really neat tradition. And it seems like a lot of rugs haven't been handed down through the years because they simply wore out, and the women who made them didn't place as much, well, the women, I guess the people who made them, because there were men who hooked as well, didn't place as much value on the rugs as we would today, or just felt that they were such a commonplace thing, nobody would want them, and when they were finished with them, they were thrown out. So unfortunately, I don't personally have a whole lot of the hooked rugs that were completed in my family, because I know that my grandmother was a hooker, my great-grandmothers were hookers, and it would have been nice to have had a bit more of that history saved, but that's all we can do. So now I'm a hooker, and I'm pleased to say my oldest son is a hooker in training. He's done a little bit of hooking as well. I really enjoy rug hooking. I'm not a I am fairly indiscriminate in terms of the fiber that I use in my rugs. I haven't started using plastic bags yet. I've heard of some people who hook with plastic bags, but I use any variety of fiber. So I use door wool, which is wool, felted wool. I use regular yarn, knitting yarn, style yarn, acrylic yarn, roving, which is the uncarded, unspun sheep's wool. I'll use silk. I'll use just about anything to get an effect that I'm looking for with a rug because I really like texture. And you'll see that my rugs are somewhat reminiscent of Deanne Fitzpatrick's rugs. Deanne is a lady from Newfoundland and Labrador, but she lives in Amherst, Nova Scotia. She is absolutely stunning. She's a brilliant rug hooker and a brilliant artist. And I'll put her information on the screen there so you can look her up. She's certainly been a huge inspiration for me with respect to rug hooking. And I love how Deanne's designs are so big and bold and use such texture. So each of the rugs that I'm going to show you, I have 2 that are finished and 1 that I'm working on right now. They're all 3 of them. I have actually only hooked. No, that's not true. The very first rug that I hooked was somebody else's pattern for a class. But the ones that I'm going to show you now are of my own design. I prefer drawing my own designs on the burlap or whatever backing that I'm using. So far I've only used burlap. And I prefer drawing my own designs on them and working within the parameters of that. So maybe someday I'll use somebody else's patterns, but for now I'm quite content to draw up my own. So this is one of the, I think this is the second rug that I ever hooked. It's just a wonky salt box style house. I put in these are wild roses down here. And those are, a lot of the pinks are hooked with Sari silk, which gives them what I think is absolutely gorgeous texture. Most of the sky is hooked with felted Door wool. Door is a manufacturer that makes the wool that rug hookers use. And this style of sky is very reminiscent of Deanne Fitzpatrick's work. So that's one there. The second one, this rug was actually intended to go under my cat bowls for my cats. And when I was finished hooking it, my husband said, no, that's not going under the cat bowls. So that's why there's a fish on here, because like I said, it was supposed to be for the cats. So it's fish bones. Again, I've hooked, there's silk in here, there's acrylic, roving, door wool. I've whip stitched around the edges with, I think with Noro Curion actually. So all different kinds of fabrics. I believe there's some nylon t-shirt and pantyhose in here as well. So like I said, I really don't discriminate in terms of the fibers that I use in my rugs. The next one's not finished yet. I'm hoping to have this one finished fairly soon. I've been working on it again for well over a year, probably close to a year and a half when I designed it. It's a game pattern for my sons to play chess or checkers. And it's in the form of a runner. So I'll show it this way first. So you can see the checkerboard in the middle. So that's where they're going to play their games. Then at either end I have a Newfoundland and Labrador scene. So for this one, this pattern across the top and the bottom is called hit or miss, and that's done in a variety of fibers. So this end is depicting clothes blowing on the line, clothes being dried on a line on a clothesline outside, which is a very traditional thing to see at any time in Newfoundland and Labrador. And this side, which as you can see is not finished yet, I'm still working on the hit or miss pattern on the top and bottom, and I have a bit of sky here to finish off. But these are beach houses, sort of like beach houses that you would have either for ice fishing or for bathing houses next to the ocean. And I'm really happy with the sky in this one. I thought that turned out really nice. So this is what I'm hoping will be another finished object in the next couple of weeks that I can show on the podcast. Like I said, I've been working on it well over a year. The boys are getting fairly desperate that they want to use it for playing chess or checkers. And I really need to get it finished before they're too old to be interested in using something that Mommy has made. Okay, I want to talk about some podcasts that there's been This week has been a really exciting week with respect to my podcast. Christina, who is the Cozy Knitter, she has an Etsy shop called the Cozy Knitter, and you really should look her up. Gorgeous, gorgeous self-striping yarn. She's an indie dyer out of Ontario, near Toronto, I believe. And she and her friend Amanda are the genius behind the podcast Die Another Day. Both of them are indie dyers. Amanda is as well, and she does, again, beautiful work. Amanda's probably most famous for her pencil pattern, sock pattern. You'll have to look that up as well. It's really cute. It's a sock that's in the pattern of a pencil. It's absolutely gorgeous. Anyway, Christina on Instagram gave me a shout out, gave my podcast a shout out this week. And all of a sudden, my subscriber list went from 12 subscribers all the way, I think I'm at over 80 now, which is absolutely fantastic. And Christina, to know that Christina is watching my podcast is a little frightening for me because it's like a huge fangirl moment. I'm like, Christina, the Cozy Knitter was watching my podcast. I'm so excited. And I had to go run in and tell my husband, and he was all excited for me. And it was... I think, Christina, if you remember how you felt when the Yarn Harlot regrammed your sock club, that's kind of how I felt when she gave me a shout out on Instagram. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate the fact that you did a shout out and that you're watching my little podcast all the way from the East Coast. The other two podcasts that subscribed to my feed this week, and I apologize if there are others that I've missed, but in particular, Knitting I Love, Barbara at Knitting I Love, and Kayleen from Little Green, she's from Little Green Crochet, but Kayleen, her podcast is called Little Bean and Me. Both of them have also subscribed to my podcast. And again, that's another total fangirl moment. Barbara was one of the first podcasts that I started watching after a recommendation from Legacy Knits from Sue and Chelsea. And Little Bean Crochet, it was a recommendation from Lynn over at Sunshine and Bubblegum, and I started watching from there. So these are podcasts I watch regularly, and to think that those ladies are also keeping an eye on my podcast is really, really exciting for me. So thank you so much, ladies, for subscribing and welcoming me into this wonderful, warm and cozy knitting community that I'm slowly becoming a part of. It's been a really fun adventure so far. And this is only episode 3. Imagine what could happen by episode 5. So I'm really excited about that. Thank you so much. The last thing I wanted to talk about before the podcast is over, I didn't say at the beginning, but I like to keep my podcast fairly short. My goal is to keep them half an hour or below half an hour. At least I find that if it's just one person speaking and it's just me and I'm sitting here and talking to you and talking to my cats, I get a little embarrassed about running on and on. So we'll see how long this podcast is when I'm finished. But the last thing that I would like to talk about are what's in the future on my needles and things that I have planned. So with that in mind, I'm going to talk a little bit about some stash enhancement to go with what I'm planning. So with some stash, this is not stash enhancement, but with some of my stash yarn, I have some Norocurion. I think that's how you pronounce this yarn. I'm not sure. That's how I pronounce it. But there's a pattern called Yarn Cocoon by Cindy Moissant, and it's a gorgeous little felted bowl with a clasp on it. And if I can, I'll show a picture, but if I can't, I'll definitely put the information on the screen so you can see it. And it's for putting a yarn cake in instead of using a yarn bowl, so it's a felted bowl instead of a glass bowl. So it's not going to break when you use it, which is perfect for me because I love the yarn bowls. But let's face it, I have 3 small children. To have a yarn bowl on the floor or on a coffee table or something like that with the kids tearing through the house, that's probably not going to last. And it's the reason I haven't bought one yet, because I've seen several gorgeous ones, but keep thinking that for me, at least at this stage of life, it's not practical. So my intent is to knit myself a yarn bowl, and I'm really excited about that. So that's the first project that I'm thinking about in the near future. Secondly, I was down at another one of my local yarn shops. I was down yesterday. In a bit of a rush visit, I'm sorry, Katie. Katie is the lovely owner at Cast On, Cast Off, which is a yarn shop on Water Street in St. John's. And I was down there to pick up yarn for some mittens. Again, I'll put this information on the screen. Movie Night Mittens by Betty. I'm not sure. I'll put it on the screens. I can't read my handwriting from my notes. So I needed to have 3 or 4 contrasting yarn. This is a really cute knit. Now I can't remember if this is a free pattern or a paid pattern. I believe this one is free, but just in case it isn't, I'm just going to show you a picture of the mittens. So that's a picture, hopefully the camera focuses, on the mittens. They're gorgeous. They're color work. And I haven't done color work before. So my hope is to learn color work between now and Christmas because I've got nothing else to do. So I'm really keen. Historically, I haven't been that interested in color work. And part of the reason why I'm interested in color work right now is that Katie over at the Inside 23 podcast, her and a friend are going to be doing a color work knit along come October. And I thought that's a really good idea for me to get started in color work. And I'm not timing, I don't know if I will ever do a color work sweater or anything like that, but mittens and socks, and there's been several projects that I have put in my Ravelry queue over the years that involve color work. And I've always put them in my queue thinking that's gorgeous. I'll probably never know how to knit it, but I'll put it in my queue because I love it. And I thought it would be nice if I learned how to do color work, because why not? It's knitting, it shouldn't be that scary. So with respect to those mittens, Katie down at Cast On Cast Off enabled me very well with 3 gorgeous skeins of yarn. So these are, you're going to notice a theme here. Katie carries Richard DeVries yarn, and I love hand-painted yarn. I needed worsted weight, so luckily there was some Richard DeVries worsted weight down there. So this is 100% merino yarn worsted weight superwash. 175 yards, so 160 meters approximately, 80 grams. This is colorway Opal. Isn't that stunning? So that's Opal. This is ILY. And this one is called Jewel Box. And I wanted to get, for these mittens, I'm not sure if they're for me or a present, and I wanted to get something that was fairly soft on the hands. I am not a fan of scratchy wool. As a sweater, if I'm going to wear something under it, maybe, but it can't touch me on the neck or the sleeves. I'm not really allergic to it, I just find it really uncomfortable. So look at these 3 together, because they're going to be very intricately woven in this pair of mittens, and I think they're going to be stunning. So Katie, thanks so much for enabling me down at the shop yesterday. I'm sorry it was a rushed visit, but I'll be back and spend some time for knitting and chatting about all the beautiful things in your shop. So thanks so much. The other project that I'm interested in knitting is by Tin Can Knits, which is 2 Canadian designers, one who lives in Canada, one who's in the UK, but she's from Canada originally. And it's called the Caramel Hat. It's a slouchy hat. It's got a really pretty cable and lace pattern across the brim and then goes into a slouch. And I thought I would like to knit a hat or 2 before Christmas, either for presents or for myself, because it's always nice to have a new hat just before Christmas and get in preparation for the winter. So I'm also thinking about that. Now I want to talk a little bit about stash enhancement, because I did have a bit of a party in my mailbox this week. I have been stalking, because I think that's the appropriate word, Sue and Chelsea's new Etsy store at Legacy Fiber Arts. And they have had, I think, 3 or 4 releases of yarn, and the yarn has been sold out in minutes, really, really fast. And so a couple of Fridays ago, they had another shop update, and I thought, I set my alarm. Yes, I'm that much of a fangirl. I set my alarm and got on the computer right away, and I managed to score a skein of yarn. I got cart jacked with 2 skeins, but that was okay, because what I did initially is put in 3 of the colorways and such. I went to the cart to decide what I wanted and what I didn't want. And by the time it was, I got cart jacked a couple of times, I ended up with exactly the skein that I wanted, so it actually worked out really, really well. So this came yesterday as well. Yesterday was a very exciting day yarn-wise. So here's the package. And of course, the first thing you do when you get yarn out of packages, you smell it. Oh, it smells sheepy, and it is so soft. So this is by Legacy Fiber Arts. This is their Cozy Toes base. It's 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon, 4-ply. There's about 435 yards. So this would be perfect for a shawl. I'm really into shawls right now. I could knit these into, this could definitely be socks. Oh, and the colorway, they have, each of their releases has been inspired by a particular movie. So they had a Halloween release that was inspired by the movie Hocus Pocus. And this release was inspired by the Christmas movie Elf. And I absolutely like them, love that movie. This particular colorway is called the 4 main food groups. And it's in reference to the main character making spaghetti with the 4 main food groups. So candy, 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 and syrup. And so that's what this represents. And it's just, I can't wait to cake this up. I'm not going to cake it up soon because I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with it yet, but I'm sure that this is going to be absolutely stunning when it's caked up. And it is so soft. It is gorgeous. Oh, I love the base. It is amazing. And I'm leaning a bit more to getting a superwash with cashmere in it because of the softness. I guess I'm at a point where I feel if I'm going to be buying or ordering a skein of yarn from an indie dyer, I may as well get the best, because I'm probably not going to be ordering on a regular basis, and I may as well get something that's absolutely stunning, and that's what I did with this. So it is, thank you, Sue and Chelsea. It is beautiful. I absolutely love it. Okay, I've talked about works in progress. I've talked about lack of finished objects. I've talked about throw cooking, works in progress, things that I'm thinking about in the future. I think I'm about all talked out. So thanks so much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed today's episode. If you really enjoyed it and you haven't subscribed already, I would love it if you subscribed. I really enjoy this, as I mentioned, this knitting community that I'm becoming a part of, and it would be great for you to join in with me as well. Now, I hope this week you get to make as many things as you want to and as you have time for. Thanks so much for joining me. Bye-bye.